Instagram started a 6fanarts hashtag. So I got some suggestions, and here's what happened. First suggestion, well, not actually the first one, but this was a twofer because Mikkel asked for Blade specifically, and Robert asked for a Black Martial Arts Master. So I combined them both and got a twofer out of that suggestion. So 2 for 1. And here I'm drawing the comic book character, not the Wesley Snipes, even though after the movie came out they did try to make the character look more like Wesley Snipes. So there is this resemblance, a similar look to the character. So I'm drawing this in ArtRage. So do pencil outlines first, and you'll see that continuously throughout the rest of these time-lapse drawings. And then on another layer I color. Here I'm using the oil brush, and I think I use that throughout everything also. And I'm laying down some color, and I'm trying to keep these between between not any more than 15 minutes. Some went a little bit over, but that's okay because it's my rules. I'm doing what I want. So there's not a lot of time to put a lot of finish on everything, because I would have put a lot more layers of color, because the color is more richer when I add, different colors. So I don't just put brown down. I'll put down yellow and red. Yellow maybe to brighten it up, and red to warm it up, and red is the color of blood underneath our skin. So that's one reason why I add red. So here is the finished product for Blade. Now Kevin asked for Bugs Bunny as a superhero, and of course initial thought was Superbugs, because that was actually in a cartoon, but I went with one of my favorite heroes, Batman. Batman's definitely at the top of the list, because he's a human who built himself up to peak perfection, peak athletic perfection, peak mental perfection, so he could catch crooks and not let anybody else suffer what he suffered as a child, his parents being murdered right in front of him. And I just hope we don't see Thomas and Martha Wayne die again in the movies. They have suffered enough. Leave them alone. So this one's very basic. I think I captured bugs pretty well at this point. It's hard because I was thinking about the mask and how I was going to do that. And also one thing is when I'm drawing things quickly, sometimes make bad decisions because I'm just trying to get it done. I'm being mindful of the time. Like here's where I should have left the eyes just like that, and because it's his eyelids, and I should have either left them white or made the eyelids gray, or I should at least try to see what it looked like. And then at the last minute I colored them in blue, and then I kind of lost the bug's look there, so that was a bad decision there. And next, Darlene suggested Archie. Archie comics, definitely some of my favorite to read even now today. Just like the characters and the situations. Of course, it's very odd, that he has 2 girls that he dates and likes. I'm not even sure they both his girlfriends, and both of them seem to be okay with it. So I'm not sure how he gets away with that. So Archie has some game. Even as a kid, that always struck me as odd, that they're both fighting over Archie. So, nothing. That's good for him. So that's all I can say. So this one's came together pretty well. I'm happy with the way Archie came out. And here I'm using the fill tool, and you can see it stopped at certain areas. I'm surprised, on the side of his head, it filled in as much as it did. But since I'm coloring the hair orange anyway, Well, I guess he's considered a redhead, not an orange head. You know, that didn't matter. But the fill tool helped me to color this faster than just putting down using the oil brush as I used here for his hair. And, you know, it helps with that comic look because it's flat colors anyway in a comic book. And here we have Daniel Tiger, suggested by Kira. I had never heard of Daniel Tiger before, so I had to go to Google to find out who Daniel Tiger was. At least what it looked like. That's what I initially did, see what it looked like. And I didn't make the connection that Daniel Tiger was the character that appeared in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And Kira told me he had a Mr. Rogers sweater. And then after that, I found out that this is the same Daniel Tiger grown up with his own show and still in the land of make-believe. So still a direct connection to Mr. Rogers. And I never really watched Mr. Rogers when I was a kid. I think by the time I started watching, I was already past the age range for the audience. So it always kind of bored me. But as much as I tried to avoid it when it was on, it's kind of hypnotic. And so I never really tried to watch it. But if something came out afterwards, if it came out after a show I was watching, I may have watched the whole show or at least half of it. So here I'm still using the oil paintbrush, and I created a lot of different layers. You may have seen that quickly. And for those of you who are really serious about this, you can slow it down and see exactly how I'm using the layers, because I'll put a main color on one layer, shadows on another layer, and get that set the way I want, and then highlights on another layer, and then I'll merge those layers down when I'm happy with everything. And it's like for that shadow underneath his chin and on his sweater, that was a separate layer, and I used a multiply mode, a blend mode, to do that. And this suggestion came from Asia, and it was SheHulk. Now this was almost a twofer, because my sister asked for a female Hulk, but you know, I'm not going to count it as a twofer because I don't think she was aware that there is a SheHulk character. So she kind of got her request anyway, but there's only one request per person, so I didn't want to break that rule, because she already had another request in, which you may or may not see later. I don't know if I'm going to do another video like this, because I am doing another batch of 6 fan arts. But it takes time to put these videos together. So depending on how much time I have, I may or may not do another one. So again, using an oil paintbrush and doing a lot of layers. And the point is, with the separate layers, this is the advantage of working digitally, is that I can try things out quickly, and if they don't work, I can get rid of it. And once I'm satisfied that it does work, then I merge it down into the layer and continue painting. So this way I don't have a whole lot of layers, which take up a lot of memory and space and create a larger file. So, and I don't consider myself very good at hair, so trying to do it in a rush, I mean, I could do it when I take time. And it was definitely a challenge. And I think I put too much poof on her left side. And this suggestion was by my college roommate, Mike. I had done the wasp for him in college, so this is kind of a bookend to that. So here I know I wanted this to be graceful, started with a nice line for the arc. So that was my guiding line of action. And wanted her to look small without her being really small, because I still wanted her to be seen. And this was one of my favorite costumes, because in her identity as Janet Van Dyne, she's a socialite, and she was definitely into fashion and had money. And so she liked to change her costumes a lot. So this one I think was the perfect one for her. And even if a lot of other people don't agree, it is my favorite one for her. Now I was trying to decide, because I wanted her to look like she was flying, so I kept shifting, and I thought this was a good pose angle for a while, but then afterwards it kind of looked like she was falling and not flying. So look at I went back to my first instinct with her being kind of straight up, and I kind of leaned her back a little bit when I did the final one. And also here's another case of making last minute decisions, because I had another plan for how to do the highlights on her costume to make them look more reflective. And then halfway through I changed my mind, and this definitely didn't come out like I want. So here it is shifted. So I did all of these separately and then collected them onto the final board blank that we saw in the beginning. And here are my 6 fan arts.